Okay, okay, now I'm really
Now
sweating.
you're done.
Okay.
So Ed, this is
Okay,
Bob.
everybody, thank you. We're gonna start.
Anybody?
Scott's gonna still be trying to work, so we can hear you. So if you're on Zoom right now, we can't hear you, but we're gonna try to remedy that. So hang in there. And all of you who are on Zoom, please email me so I know you were here, so you will get to vote the next time we have a vote. So thank you. So I know we have some new people here. I'm Ed Katz. We're passing around the sign-up sheet. Please make sure everybody who's here signed it, so you get to vote. So that way I know for sure who's here and I don't forget. Well, we'll see. I told them to email. They can email you. You got my email. So, that's how you got here, since I didn't quite have it in the flip book this week. All right, so thank you all for coming. I appreciate it. We got a great turnout tonight. I'm Ed Katz. This is the Eastpointe Movie Critic Discussion Night, and we are discussing the Banshees of Inisherin, nominated for 9 Oscars. Okay, next, if you want to set your date, you save the date. March 23rd is the next time, and I will choose that one. And then for after that, you guys get to vote. Yes, March 12th, Sunday night. There we go. Okay. So everyone on Zoom, ordinarily I would tell you to mute yourself, but we can't hear you right now anyway, so it's okay. So hang in there. We're working on it. Okay, so let's start the way we usually start. Show of hands. Who liked the movie? Okay. All right. Who was like middling on it? Mixed feelings? Okay. Got a handful of those, more than a handful. And who did not like it? Thumbs down? Only a couple. Okay, so it's pretty mixed between liked it and middling, and just a couple thumbs down. Okay, not bad.
Two places now.
All right, so of those who liked it, anyone want to say what they liked about it? Any volunteers? Yes. Nancy.
Although I didn't like the movie, but I thought, I don't have to say this. I wouldn't say I liked it, but I thought.
The camera's messed up again.
Okay.
And it was a very interesting concept about, I mean, you can, the relationships between the people and their personalities really came out. So I thought it was a good movie for that reason, even though it was a little gory and I liked the characterizations and how he brought out the characters.
Okay, and I want to get to more on that, but how many people knew this was a comedy?
I heard that.
I
can hear you.
I just don't understand where we're getting us.
Well, actually, one critic.
We
wrote that
see
it was
you
tragic
too.
comedy, which I think is a fair point, right? Yeah. Okay. So, right, what was funny about it, right? And Dan was
now
like,
it's
are you
back.
kidding me? A comedy? So, but there were certain scenes that were funny. I mean, with the confession with the priest.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty funny, right? Yeah, both times
And also that,
with the end.
there's one friend wanted to break up with the other friend and he gave them the finger.
Yeah.
Right, literally.
That was actually the title of one of the reviews.
Oh, really? Well,
It was when your friend gives you the finger, something like that.
oh, that's,
Yeah.
More than one.
yeah, oh, yeah, more than one.
So, and I want to talk about that too, because
I had some, just before you say that, since you wanted to emphasize that this was a comedy, I couldn't put my finger on it.
No, I was, it's dumb. I think we've got it all out.
so now, are you familiar with Martin McDonagh, who wrote and directed it and got nominated for both? You familiar with him?
No, just from
Okay.
in Bruges.
Yes.
Okay, right, in Bruges, which he made previously, two films ago. He basically he's made about 4 films, like one every 5 or 7 years. So he doesn't make a lot of movies, but he's done a lot on Broadway and the West End and off Broadway. And he's a very prolific playwright who's won a lot of awards for his plays. And I want to cover that too, but in a minute. But all right, so Rotten Tomatoes had a 96 for this from the critics. From the audience is a 75, which is very good, but definitely a drop off between critics and audiences. And we've seen this before. It's not the first time. But the Rotten Tomatoes consensus was featuring some of Martin McDonagh's finest work and a pair of outstanding lead performances. The Banshees of Inisherin is a finely crafted feel-bad treat. Okay. The audience's comment was the consensus: if you don't mind a slow, sad story, The Banshees of Inisherin is worth watching thanks to gorgeous scenery and some terrific acting. I wouldn't argue with that. Okay, and I want to get to the ending because I know we have divergent opinions on the ending. But for someone who did not like the movie, can you talk about why you did not like it?
Well, the guy was deeply depressed.
Which one?
Which
Brendan
one?
Gleeson,
Yeah.
character Colin?
Huh?
Colin?
Writer.
Brendan Gleeson?
Oh, yes. And he really needed treatment. I mean, the thing, I don't like you anymore. Don't talk to me or I'll cut off my finger, and then he does. And the man was depressed to the nth degree.
Well, I'd say, psychotically depressed.
It was crazy.
Agree to that. Feel depression
You
then.
have to remember, this is an Irish film. They have to use different terminology and standards. They had just gone through a horrible civil war.
They were still in it. Towards the end of it, yeah.
And it was the IRA people that hated other people in the IRA who were brothers and friends. So, I mean, that's, it wasn't religion and it wasn't just the English.
Okay, and that's all fair point. I'll make the counter argument that the people in this movie were so far removed because they were just across the way and they were seeing the war, but they're not in it.
Right.
But they didn't even really know what they were fighting about or who was fighting or who was going to kill who for an execution. They didn't know those things because it didn't affect their everyday life. Now, having said that, and the reviews I read kind of bore this out, this movie and the characters were meant to parallel what was going on with the Civil War. This was a little civil war on the island between these two characters as it kept escalating with the violence and the fingers. So there's some definite parallels there, but they were removed because they were literally on an island. And of course, Inisherin is not actually a real island. It's a made up name.
And the Banshees are really bad.
Well, we can discuss that too, but
I thought you were talking about.
no, didn't think there was a point to it. All right, well, we'll definitely talk about what the director was trying to get across and writer.
When you talk about war parallels, in war, you're trying to beat the other person. You're not trying to beat up on yourself.
Right, but it was a civil war. When a country is beating itself up literally and figuratively. So I thought that was where the metaphor came in.
And Inisherin is a region that's on the border between Northern Ireland and the main port. And it was a major part of the Trinity book. It was written by Leon Uris that described the Irish Civil War. So it is a place, and it's an important place.
Well, all the reviews I read kept saying it was a made up name because it wasn't an actual place, but I mean, it was an actual place in Ireland. That's where they filmed it. But the name actually means something like Irish Island, Ireland's Island. That's what the translation of Inisherin means for what it's worth. But I tried looking at it on a map. I did not see an Inisherin on a map. I don't know about in the 1920s because maps can
He
change.
copied Leon Uris's book because that was a major.
That's a fair point.
Sure.
I think, what about the importance of
Video
the
background.
column
Why?
wanted to break
You
up
don't know.
with?
Doesn't matter. That's the video.
Where's the metaphor work there?
Okay,
To
So-
me, there's something there.
right. So
I think
when I
everything
was in
else.
film class, we learned it's best to start the action as late as you can. Okay, so we never got to see them as friends. We heard they were close friends, but the movie starts when one of the characters, Calm, wants to break up the friendship. So that was, I guess, McDonagh's deciding he wanted to start as late as possible in the action. And that's when he felt he could do it, was.
And we don't know why. He wanted
Happens to be true.
Well,
Did we?
yes, we did. I think we did. Well, I think it was that he felt that, what was the guy's name? What was? No, the other one. Podrick didn't really bring much to the table. And then he was insipid and boring and kept him from his important work, which was music.
I wanted to write something memorable that would live on after he did.
It's an open martyr by cutting off his fingers, right, and not being able to do that, right?
He couldn't play the fiddle.
He couldn't,
Right.
so he cut off his fingers to spite his face.
Also, again, self-destructive, which goes back to the metaphor of a civil war. When a country is being self-destructive, that's a civil war. So that was kind of
It was his
furthering.
right.
It was, yeah, it was his civil war. And they did show another thing with the parallel with the Civil War, whereas, they're on the island and occasionally they will see cannon fire and smoke and know things are going on over there. We didn't see it from this side of the Ireland's perspective, the other side of the channel there, until Podrick burned down the house, and then the other side would be seeing the smoke from that. So then you see a little bit of the parallel too, and that was kind of towards the end.
Ed, when you think about it, the fingers are what makes everybody crazy. It makes everybody nuts and changes the nature of the movie. But if you think about a marriage breakup, and it's festering for a long time, but you wake up one morning, you said, I had it, honey, I'm out of here, bye-bye. Whichever honey you want, out of here. I want to talk about it, my lawyer will call you, and bye-bye, that's it. And it's not uncommon.
So he came to a realization. That he realized he only had a certain number of days left, and he wanted to maximize his time. And he felt, I guess, after he said the previous day, which we didn't see, but we heard about, that Podrick went on for about 2 hours talking about his donkey's feces. And he's at that point, he was done. That was like the straw that broke the camel's back. Yes.
No, I was gonna say the same thing. I think it was because he came to a certain point. He changed the relationship.
Yes.
He got older and he decided that he needed something else. He wasn't happy with his life. And so he was trying to find himself. By trying to find himself and something to make him, he needed to feel important, or he needed to do something important.
He wanted to do something lasting.
Right, and he didn't, this was taking too much time, and he changed the whole dynamic of their relationship.
Yes.
But very abruptly.
Yes.
Without really any conversation.
And if you remember,
Difficult.
Saban asked him about that.
Yeah.
She's like, you don't just all of a sudden not be friends with someone, right? She goes, what changed? He goes, I changed. Remember he said that? He said, I changed.
Yeah, but then he's self-mutilating himself by cutting his fingers.
Right, which is a problem, frankly, I had with the movie. I thought that kind of gets to a lack of credibility, and I know you kind of have to suspend your disbelief in things that happen in movies sometimes. And that was a little too much for me. But as soon as that threat came on, where he said that's what he's going to do, I'm thinking, wow, so now that's what's going to happen in the movie. Because you're not going to put that out there and then not have it, right?
Finger, second finger.
And now you remember, he was saying he was going to do it one at a time.
Right.
Yeah, they did.
And then he didn't. They changed it. I think they didn't want to put us through going one at a time. It's like, really, again. So they shortened it, but I think. But he didn't say it.
What about the dog and it takes the scissors away?
Yes, the dog took the shears away when the dog knew what was going to happen. The dog drags the shears away. Yes.
His fingers are symbolic of him giving up the music, not as so much the fingers themselves. It's that he couldn't play the fiddle anymore. And what's ironic is that it wound up what's killed the donkey that he loved the most.
Right, which
the both of them, those
He
fingers.
killed the donkey and his name.
right. So what it goes into is unintended consequences of your actions. He didn't expect any of this when he decided he wasn't going to be friends, even though you live on an island, you're going to be seeing him every day anyway. But
There was a message up there.
The policeman was a brute,
Oh,
is what he said. If you take that square off.
Well, if you read his,
Take that square off.
his messages.
Oh, okay. You
It's easier
have
to-
it in the chat, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just gonna say though, I think the priest.
Same way you did it
Yeah.
before, the same way you did it
When,
before.
in the confessional,
Yeah.
when the box.
In the box. Okay, hold on.
I don't know.
Where am I going now?
Right, up higher, up higher.
Right there,
Oh,
red.
Red,
The red.
yeah.
Yeah, exit out.
Because they
And then on
can't
the
hear
bottom,
me.
maybe you could do that, so you could see if they want to pop something in the chat.
Okay.
It's back.
Maybe everyone.
No, we're not
leave
yet,
it,
because then
come
we'd kick
back.
everybody off. It would be too tough.
Okay. Maybe I'll exit out of that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Jeff.
About the fingers though, the most, playing the violin was such an important
The fiddle.
thing in his life, the fiddle.
Yeah.
The fact that he would do that so we could, you say, oh, you could mutilate.
That's what I had a hard time with,
Take
but
off
I'm trying to
the-
recognize he's depressed.
But he finished his music.
He did finish the
And
poem,
that's what he wanted to leave, was the music.
right?
But he also never played it in front of anyone, but
No.
yeah.
We never saw the whole thing played. There was a little bit of it, but right, we didn't see that. Which one, at least one reviewer said was a symbol of the fact that it really wasn't something permanent because we never got to see it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yes,
What I took from the whole thing, and maybe it's very shallow, I'm not looking into the symbolism, but what bothered me about it is how incredibly cruel I thought, what's his character, the one that was cutting his fingers off?
calm.
Colin was so cruel to his friend by doing that. To
Yes.
me, it was just.
Which he did apologize for, by the way.
But how do you just
And his friend was boring.
yeah. His friend and say, I don't like you anymore, I don't want to sleep anymore.
That's what I thought,
horrible.
Lori. Yeah, I
But
felt
you
the same
did
way.
good. I was like, that
Yeah.
is horrible.
That's what I
Not
felt.
only that, He took his own friendship away from this poor guy. He inadvertently killed his second best friend, which was the donkey.
Yeah,
So this poor guy had to keep, it was his friend, his donkey, sister.
Sister and his other friend, Dominic.
Then he got revenge by killing the
What depressing can this be?
Yes.
He took action.
I went and did some research on spitefulness and spite, because I think that was the main thing we're all talking about.
Okay.
Spitefulness. And there's not a lot in psychiatric and psychological literature that I could find, but it's a negative behavior in a mean way, and a desire to really hurt someone. And when you look at, and you do personality test on people, you find that they're borderline narcissistic personalities. We never really got to see, like you said, we never got to see who this guy really was before all this happened. He could very well have been a border, you call him depressed, he could have been a borderline.
Narcissist?
I thought he was very narcissistic.
Well, the thing
He
that
had
troubled.
zero empathy for his friend.
Zero, yeah.
Zero, and look who he replaced. At least that guy was a nice guy. Look who he replaced with, that policeman who was a horrible person.
Horrible person. But wait a minute.
He never.
Let's
liked
talk
it.
about the nice aspect, because
Right.
if you remember the scene towards about 3/4 of the way through, 2/3, 3/4, Podrick was in the bar shouting at
Yeah.
Colin for what he did and saying, but being nice is important, isn't it? And he's
Yeah.
like, no, there's no legacy to being nice, essentially. He said, it doesn't last. And he said, but that's what's important, right? But how nice was he? Okay, he lied several times through the movie. He told, I'm talking about Podrick.
Right.
He told a lie to the young student because he was jealous, the music student, about his parent getting killed, which again was another sort of dark comedy scene. We talked about that because he said, your mom was hit by a bread van. That's impossible. She's already dead. And he goes, oh, I'm sorry. It was your father. He goes, oh my God. He goes, no, it can't happen. Really? He goes, I know. He goes, that's what killed my mother. Remember that?
Yeah.
So, I mean, dark humor, that's Martin McDonagh. That's typical of his humor. But he lied about that to get the guy to leave, to go back, where he came from. And he was mean to Dominic, which drove Dominic away because he told him about this. And he said, oh, you're being mean. And then, of course, burning down a house and lying to Jenny about what was going on, saying, not Jenny, his sister Saban, saying Jenny was great. How nice was he? He wasn't being nice. So it was interesting because in an interview, I'm never going to be able to find it here, but an interview, Colin Farrell was asked what he thought about, the movie. He said, it's really what it's about. He said, it's about the disintegration of joy. He said his character starts out very happy and it goes right downhill from there. And like a downward spiral that he couldn't get out of. So that was kind of
I
interesting.
think there was a big part of naivety on the side of Patrick that he just couldn't deal and he took people at face value and didn't have coping ability when he was rejected.
Right, he's a dimwit, you have to remember.
Yeah.
But look where they were.
Dimwit.
Right, we just had a comment on the chat that it was a metaphor for a war that couldn't end. But ironically, that civil war that really was happening ended a month later. So it was towards the end, which Shaban wrote back to Padraig, her brother, in the letter that the war is ending, which it was. It ended a month later. Because the movie starts, if you remember, April 1st, right? April Fool's Day is when the movie started.
You know, I treated him differently, Colin. I thought he was just very depressed. And I think what I took away was he was cutting off his fingers because he wouldn't be able to play anymore. And the reality is, to me, is that he wasn't successful in what he wanted. He wanted something lasting. And I guess he maybe came to the conclusion that it wasn't going to last. And it was a way out of not doing the music anymore. If his fingers aren't there, he can't do the music anymore.
Well, he couldn't play it,
Right.
but he still could write it.
Yeah,
He
but
wrote it,
it
he never
can't,
did.
yeah.
And he had students, and he had students.
He had students who were playing it. They were we saw them practice.
Yeah, I thought it was mostly not that he was mean, but that he was so depressed.
And he had
That's fair.
students there who could have taken that music and spread it around through other parts of Ireland.
Right.
That was the whole
Anybody here?
point. He said people weren't
I don't think so.
music that lasts in
If
life.
he were to say,
You know, that's what
I don't
lasts.
You can hear me, right?
He said his friendship with him.
If you want to unmute,
Century
can you
wrong.
talk in?
Well, yeah, he got the century wrong, but
but if
Right.
you would have.
I don't listening.
composers last.
Wrote the music,
Ed, can you hear
He
me?
would have been stuck in that relationship, listening to his.
No.
Yeah, he didn't want to hear more about the donkey poop anymore. Right.
But he couldn't he stay home and write it?
Hey.
That's kind of what Ann said.
Friends, Jim, they can sound good and you
No.
can still do your work.
Right.
You don't have to pick one or the other.
Right.
Right.
That was kind of what Ann said.
He
Yep.
was done with the other guy. He just decided he was done with him.
Right. He felt it was a waste of time being with him is really the bottom line. Yes, he was.
Feel bad.
Yes, he was.
His fingers off and
Yeah, but
basically blaming Patrick.
He had just backed off, I think.
But he
just-
wouldn't.
He would.
No, but neither of them would.
Yeah.
They both were being stubborn, which was again the metaphor of the Civil War, that they were both entrenched in their positions and not backing down.
Then when he burnt his house, it was until the death day that he called them out on Patrick.
Okay, I'm gonna get to that in a bit. I don't want to get to the ending just yet.
I wonder what the symbolism is when the priest says, self-mutilation is a sin.
Yes.
Yes.
I think it was interesting that the whole town went to church.
Yes.
He was sort of rebelling not only for himself, but just also from the town, because he was sinning against everybody. Right, by cutting off his fingers and self-mutilating, he was sort of distracting himself from the whole community.
Right. There was a play that Martin McDonagh wrote earlier, like a decade or so earlier. I just want to find the title of it because it's kind of interesting and relevant to this.
Didn't
But
the priest also say, I'm sorry, didn't the priest also say, you're not being very nice?
Yeah.
Like.
Yes, he did.
I understand what you're saying, but you're really not being very nice. It's like, that is kind of important too. you
Here it
know?
is. Yep. So the play he wrote earlier was called A Behanding in Spokane with Christopher Walken. And it was about Christopher Walken's character searching for his missing left hand for a quarter of a century. It opened on Broadway in March 2010, and it was nominated for a Drama League Award Distinguished Production of a Play. But so he's getting back to a similar theme, right? So speaking of similar themes that he's revisited, remember I told you he's mostly a playwright, but he's written several movies. So I want to touch base on it because I think you're going to find something kind of a thread running through this. in
Does he
his
have both
movies.
his hands? I'm just curious.
Yes, he does. And actually, he's been, since 2018, his girlfriend is Phoebe Waller-Bridge from, Fleabag, the show Fleabag. She's been nominated for and won a lot of stuff for that, so it's a comedy. We watched a couple episodes, but we kind of lost interest, but it's about this girl who's kind of crazy, who's trying to navigate relationships. British
Finish-
one.
finish my hand.
I watched it.
Yeah,
Maybe it's into Peter Pan.
hold on one second, I just gotta find it here.
You have to play a violin, I don't think.
Watching the movie because you wanted to see if this guy was really gonna cut his finger off.
Yeah.
So you stayed with the movie. I mean, that was what I kind of.
I keep waiting for it to make up. Like,
Yeah.
I wanted
Yeah,
to
me
see
too.
it be ending
Yeah.
in it. It was-
Never mind.
You were waiting for him.
Looked like for a moment that they were gonna make that.
But at the end, he said.
Well, the ending was kind of interesting because he wasn't exactly sure how he was gonna end it until he got closer to it. We talked about that.
Remind me what the ending was. I saw it a while ago.
You're gonna get there.
We'll get there, yeah.
The dog sees Colin. And he says, thank you for taking care of my dog.
Yeah.
Oh, right. The two of them were on the beach, yes.
But he also said, when you burn my house down, that evens everything up, we can be friends again.
Not quite.
No. Yeah. Because he killed him, some color.
Yeah.
Right, wrong, the finger.
Oh, yes.
One done.
Okay,
When?
Yeah.
You know, the irony of it is that Colin had wanted time, he just didn't want Patrick in his life,
right.
but all they had was time on this island.
Yes, yeah, that's their point. I can't argue. I agree. That's I thought kind of a flaw in the movie. There are a few.
Lock of the pub. That's it.
Right.
Guinness and Hart.
But they
So
were islands in themselves on this island.
which is a great point because I wanted to ask you, who were the married couples in the movie? Zero.
Yeah, I can see it.
Zero. There's an island and nobody was married. Well, yeah, her too, yeah. So, all right, so I just wanted to get back, so it was interesting that his first film that he made was a short, he won an Oscar for it, Martin McDonagh in 2006 called Six Shooter. And it had Brendan Gleeson in it, Colin. Then he did In Bruges, which had Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson in it. A few other actors too, but that was kind of interesting. And then Seven Psychopaths he made, which had Colin Farrell and Christopher Walken, who was in his play.
Favorite psychopaths.
Yeah.
Right. And then he made, if you remember, a movie I really liked, Three Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. So that was one of his, which had it didn't have any of these, but it had Sam Rockwell and Woody Harrelson, and Woody Harrelson and Sam Rockwell were in Seven Psychopaths. And then in Banshees, of course, Brendan Gleeson and Colin Farrell are back. Also, the woman, and why am I not seeing her name here? The woman who was the actress who played Saban, she was in a couple of his things, and she acted in several of his plays. She was nominated for an Oscar, and I'm losing her name here. Yeah, all right, I'm sorry, but okay, I can't find it, but okay, so he makes a movie. It was 2008 was In Bruges, Seven Psychopaths, 2012, 2017 was Three Billboards, and now 2022 was the Banshees. So let's talk about the title a bit. All right, so did anyone check and see what a definition of banshee is?
Yeah.
With people? Okay, anyone want to share what they thought and what they came up with?
It's the foretelling, it's foretelling of the that's coming. Mrs. McCormick was her name, but
Yeah.
in wearing that shroud, and, but the banshees are really never seen. So having her there was a physical representation.
Well, spirit.
Yeah.
Make a sound.
You could see it.
Like the sight of the noise.
Yeah. I've seen that.
See it?
Yeah.
So with this, it's almost like there's a cross behind her too,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
which I thought was kind of interesting that from the screenshot, kind of looks like it makes a cross. And she's got the pipe too, like a corncob
Yeah.
pipe thing going on. So she was kind of a character, and all the characters pretty much hid from her. Oh, we got another one. Oh, Debbie, no, Dorothy. What next? That one was good.
Two
Um,
people will die.
Well, she said one, and she didn't
Two
say
deaths.
people,
She said two
which
deaths.
was interesting. She said one, maybe two deaths. Sorry.
From your family, I think she said, go.
Here's my thought on it, because was the donkey the second death or not? And here's my question on it, because if you remember the discussion in the confessional, Calm said to the priest, well, I killed a donkey. And you remember what the priest's answer was? Do you think God gives an F about a donkey? No. So therefore, was what she said the second death, was it really the donkey? Or was it not? Now, you remember the end of the movie?
There was
The
kid died in the water.
Well, there was the kid, Dominic, he was one. But who was two? Was there, because she said maybe another death. Well, at the end of the movie, she is watching the two of them
One of them killed us.
on the beach. We don't know.
I mean, that's what I thought.
Well, we don't know how it's gonna end after the movie's over,
Maybe
what's gonna
one-
happen.
yeah.
Because maybe one will kill the other, because, and this gets to the ending that I did want to talk about. Except to the death. Because we talked a little bit earlier about the death, and about the ending and what it means. Do you remember like the last lines of the movie? Let me get to my notes on this. When Podrick sees that Calm's alive, he has a bit of a surprised look on his face, right?
Because he thought he died in the fire.
He thought he died in
He
the
was sitting
fire
in the fire. He was sitting right in the fire.
initially,
Yeah.
and then he leaves.
Sitting in the house.
And he was sitting in the house, actually smoking a cigarette, again, a little, metaphor there. Okay, I'm gonna check my notes here on it.
See, that's an illusion. Because he really did die in the fire.
No.
But we didn't see him leave.
Yeah.
And why are you talking about what happens after the movie's over? When the movie's over, it's over. We can kind of come up with any plot. When a movie's
Right.
over, there's an ending.
But
and other stuff may happen,
there's a lot of implied possibilities for what happens
but we
afterwards.
never know any of that.
We don't know for sure.
Speculation.
Speculation, make it up, right?
Okay, here it is. So at the end, right, Podrick took the animals in the house for companion. He reveals he will always hold a grudge. But when Calm thanks him for looking after his dog, what does Podrick say back to him? You remember? Thanks anytime.
Anytime.
He says anytime, but how does he say it? And I watched it twice to make sure I got it right. His voice was trembling when he said anytime. Because it wasn't because he meant anytime, like, sure, that's what friends do. No. He was choked up because it reminded him of the break in their friendship that was permanent, and he wouldn't be able to get it back. And that's why he had this vow that this was not over, because he said to him, no, it would be over if you died. So because Calm asked him, he said that, well, you burned down my house, we're even now, right? He goes, no, it'd be over if you were in the house. So it's not over. So when she's watching,
That was the friendship, these two. just being
it's over. It's over, their friendship's over. And she's watching the two of them on the beach, wondering if this is gonna be the second death. That was my take on it. Okay?
And he also says that the war is never over, because he says it looked like it's going to be over, and he said, they'll fight again.
That's right, good point,
Yeah.
exactly, right.
Yeah.
It's not ending, exactly. He said it was a good thing about
You
that.
know what? I thought maybe it was the death of his spirit at the end. He was broken.
Yeah.
At the end, when he didn't want to move with his sister and try to have a better life. He
Right.
just kind of gave up.
He gave up. Right.
It was like, you know, he was.
It was the death of the old.
The death of his character.
Right.
So maybe that's.
Yeah.
It's-
Like saying
right.
that.
She didn't say people.
No, that was the second death.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah, it was certainly a kind of a death. Okay, any other, I have a bunch of fun trivia stuff about the movie, but yes,
You asked about, if you like.
speak loudly, please.
You asked if we liked the movie, what were some of the reasons? So Podrick had this incredible character change from his
Yes.
happy-go-lucky, sort of doofus kind of
Yeah.
to this malevolent, I'm gonna get you and we're not done here. I thought it was terrific change in the character development in that film. That was one of the reasons I liked the film.
Right. We remember in the pub, Colum, he seemed to like Patrick better when he was angry and
Yeah.
mean-spirited.
Yes, he did.
It's live.
There was some unpredictability about him, which he appreciated because it was different than what he'd been used to from him. Right.
So Columns,
Right, right.
killed his spirit. And he ends up having blood on his hands, literally, right? Yeah, because he cut off his fingers. Yeah.
Well, the second death could have been the death of their friendship.
Yes,
I mean, that really.
but that was already dead when she made her prediction.
Also, when he was drinking with Dominic, he said to him when he left, that's the meanest thing anyone's ever done. And this was the kid that was being beaten and molested by his father.
Yeah.
Right, good point, Ben. All right,
How do you know he's molested?
When he told him what.
Oh, yeah.
when he found out.
Oh, yeah.
all right, in Gawker, Jack Hansen wrote, calling the movie a pitch black delight. I had what I wanted him to say here. Okay, oh, here it is. Calm thanks him for looking after his dog, his one inviolable link to tenderness. Anytime, says Podrick, walking away, the bond between the men now firmly reestablished, if recast by pain, transgression, and loss, affectionate or not, it is a true friendship. That's where I thought this reviewer was wrong, because when I watched it twice, that was not the message at all. But he said here, the initial neatness of the film's conceit gives way to the paradoxical conditions of living, the compromises and sins that go into any decision that means anything, even those we make in good faith with the best of intentions. Tom tries to circumvent this human mess in an attempt at purity. The collateral damage of his friend's broken heart, a price he decides he's willing to pay. As the film progresses, it becomes clear that we never know the consequences of our actions until they unfold, if even then. And the more we attempt to control our lives, the greater the range of unforeseeable possibilities for worse and for better. With the accidental killing of Jenny, the donkey. Is this closure? Here it is. Not really. None has come out of this drama unscathed. Some haven't come out at all. Ends, mercifully or mercilessly, depending on your mood, are not endings. The clarity we do receive in life isn't the close of questioning, but its renewal. Real purpose puts you back to the task of living amidst everything and everyone so apparently superfluous. Most of the mess right where you left it, if not made worse. But does anything of the fable remain, any hope of a world of unshaded light? Perhaps there can still be a message, a lesson, one that makes the task a bit easier to bear, the mess richer in significance. Yes, of course, there's a message, a few in fact, and they bear repeating over and over again, like the shore break, which is sometimes gentle and sometimes harsh, sometimes covers over the body of a neglected friend, or else bears your sister away and may one day bear her back, though it will do so silently, since in all your walking you have ceased to hear it. Be a pal, let the animals in the house, try not to get too scared, love deeply, forgive easily, don't kill yourself, and don't let anyone do it for you either.
But what, it felt so, an unfinished piece was the policeman.
Okay.
The father, it was just unresolved and left hanging there with all the other things.
What do you think was left hanging with him?
What is, consequences of his behavior.
His son committed suicide.
Is that what you
Yeah,
think?
but
That's what- How do you, we don't know that he committed suicide.
That's true, we don't know.
We just know
All
that
the
he-
reports seem to indicate they felt it was probably a suicide, but that's true. It's not, it could have been an accident, he could have slipped.
Yeah,
When he just got rejected,
he was outed
he
at
told
the pub.
he was out at the pub and he just got rejected for the one woman he had affection for.
And he told her, I'm gonna go over there and do what I have to do or something like that.
Yeah, he did kind of make an indication that could be interpreted to be suicide, right? Right. Right. So to me, that he did suffer a consequence because he did lose his son. So, okay, all right, so I have some of the critics comments. All right, this is AV Club, Audiovisual Club. Writer-director Martin McDonagh's soulful masterpiece offers a windswept elegy on a camaraderie that has reached its inexplicable expiration, as well as melancholic rumination on mortality. Because that's what it's about. He was trying to think what he's going to do with the rest of his days, which of course, Padraig lived day to day and never thought about that. Even when his sister said, "Don't you ever get lonely?" He scoffed at it. He didn't want to be confronted with that question. Okay, Adam Graham in the Detroit News, he wrote a really good review. He calls it, "It's a gut punch of a comic drama that keeps finding new ways to land hard-hitting body blows, and it's easily one of the year's best films." The Banshees of Inisherin, which was filmed on a pair of stunningly gorgeous islands off the west coast of Ireland, simmers and morphs and deepens as these two stubborn men refuse to cede any ground to the other. How far are they willing to go? When is enough enough? And how different would this story be if it was the tale of a man and a woman? McDonagh's heartbreaking study of life, legacy, and melancholy resonates with a richness that is felt deep within its bones. It's best seen and savored with a couple good friends over a few pints. That was kind of an interesting comment. Okay, I want to get to some of the trivia, but anyone have any other comments they wanted to raise?
Well, I just want to say, not that I want to get into, I think that what Dave said at the beginning, not that people cut each other's hair, but I think it is very much like a divorce, by the way, very much like a divorce, and one person trying to move away from the other person, and how difficult and how nasty people tend to get to each other. I thought that was the best comment.
Yep, great comment.
Could have left after the first minute.
All right, so I really only found one negative review of in a mainstream publication. It was the Boston Globe. Mark Feeney wrote, "Banshees is like a short story trying to be a novel. The extra pages get filled with the postcard views." Okay, I didn't see it that way. Richard Roper in the Sun Times said Gleason and Farrell revived their mesmerizing interplay, meaning from In Bruges, surrounded by breathtaking Irish scenery and a brilliant ensemble cast. Sarah Michelle Fetters wrote, "McDonagh, Farrell, and Gleason deliver something special. The Banshees of Inisherin is unquestionably one of the year's best films." Max White, Baltimore Magazine, "The film toggles masterfully between comedy and tragedy, realism and fable. It manages to be both of the moment and completely timeless." And then David Stratton, I'm not familiar with him, in The Australian, wrote, "The Banshees of Inisherin is not just a beautifully written screenplay. This deeply affecting, warmly humorous, beautifully acted, and handsomely photographed film is a major work on top of my list for the best film of 2022.
Go watch it again.
I saw it twice.
Well, I know.
All right.
Finger is that
Is there any autobiographical information on McDonagh, whatever his name was? Did he have a terrible divorce in his life? You talked about he had his fingers, but did he have?
Right. Not that I
life
saw.
crisis, anything?
He's not married, but he's been with Phoebe Waller-Bridge since 2018. I didn't see about before that. But he's in his 40s, so it's obviously not his first relationship, you would think. Okay, so this movie was intended to be the third installment in a series of his stage plays dubbed the Aran Islands Trilogy, which included The Cripple of Inishman and The Lieutenant of Inishmore. He never made it into a play. No, those are plays. Okay, those aren't movies. Farrell and Brendan Gleeson agreed to be in this film 7 years before it was greenlit.
Wow.
They wanted to do it right away. Also, the guy who played Dominic said yes without even reading the script. And he's in a bunch of other stuff. He was nominated, and I think he won a BAFTA award for it. But he played the Joker in the new Batman movie, 2022. He was the Joker. So he's got major star power going up with him. But he wanted to do it because it was Martin McDonagh, and he said, I want to be in anything he's in. Yeah, I don't really care because I trust the writing. So that was pretty cool. Colin Farrell had several incidents with animals during the shoot. Jenny, the miniature donkey, kicked him while he was hand feeding her. Second, the dog portraying Brendan Gleeson's pet bit him. And thirdly, a horse leading a cart he was in tried to reverse the cart into the ocean with him. In real life, Brendan Gleeson is a skilled fiddle player. He plays his own music here in the movie, as he did in actually 3 other movies of which I'm not familiar with, but he played them.
Gotta hand it to him.
So anyway, Colin Farrell's character's name, if you translate it from Gaelic, it's apparently becomes Patrick Sullivan. I'm not even going to try to pronounce it when I'm looking at all the symbols here. It's crazy. Colm's home. Oh, so his home. Did you notice Colm's home had a fireplace and electricity, and Podrick's did not?
Of course.
Right. I thought also they made a comment, one of the critics, that his home was shot on the island of Achill. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it, Achill, which is craggy and rugged to reflect his moral quandary, but also more interesting. Whereas Podrick's home was filmed on flatter, more inherently uninteresting island of Inisherin, to be more boring. Okay.
But at some point, Patrick and his sister, Siobhan, lived with their parents, yet
The parents were dead. Yep, they died. I think they said 7, 8 years ago.
sleeping in the same.
Yes, that was weird.
Brother and sister.
Right.
Well, they haven't trusted him.
The only bedroom.
Yeah.
Sexuality. They're all inbred.
That inbred.
Yeah, okay.
They nobody about them sleeping in the same room. It must have been parents' bedroom.
Yeah, you're right. There must have been a parent's bedroom they could have slept. Yeah, I didn't even think of that.
Yeah.
Kind of good point. Yep.
Childhood, that's probably how they slept from the time they were.
Maybe that was the parents'
Yeah.
bedroom. And they just slept out in the open.
Good point.
For 8 years.
Yeah.
The fans were dead.
Right, right. After finishing his song, The Banshees of Inisherin, Colm muses that he doesn't think banshees scream to portend death anymore. Rather, they just sit back, amused and observant. Well, doesn't that describe Mrs. McCormick, who was watching the end particularly? Right? So maybe they still are there. So, oh yeah, here he is. Keegan, Barry Keegan. That's the guy who played Dominic. So he played the Joker in the Batman, and he'll likely have a much larger role in the Batman 2. He was quick to sign on to it. He explained anything Martin McDonagh does, I'd sign up to it. When I got the email off him, it was like, I'm in. He was like, do you want to read it? And the film was actually written for Brendan Gleeson and Colin Farrell. It's not exactly a sequel to In Bruges, but he did want to revisit the 2 actors, at least have them with something else.
They're spectacular.
No, it was a dark comedy also.
Neither of them were nominated for awards. Of the 9 awards,
Yeah.
neither of
They
them.
both are.
They both are.
They both are. Oh, I didn't think they were.
Well, Colin Farrell is. I'm not sure if Brendan Gleeson was, because I know the kid, Dominic, Keegan, Barry Keegan, he was nominated.
Okay.
And also the woman, again, I'm missing her name.
The sister.
The sister, Siobhan, she was nominated. And I think she won a BAFTA, actually. Carrie Condon, there it is. So she first worked with him in his theater production of The Lieutenant Inishmore back in 2001. So he keeps reusing the same actor.
Yeah.
And Woody Harrelson has been in 2 of his movies as well. And so has Sam Rockwell. So pretty cool. And if you haven't seen the 3 Billboards movie, which really stars but the woman, Frances McDormand, yes. I like that one better than this, but I thought that was a terrific movie.
That was the guy.
Who wrote that? That was the movie just before this one.
I like that.
Gleason's in this TV series, Mr. Mercedes. That's actually worth looking at. Mr. Mercedes.
What's that on? Do you remember what platform?
I don't know. You have to, it was on about 3 years ago, 2 years ago. 3 seasons. It had about 3 seasons.
Mr. Mercedes.
A record of human being.
All right, any other comments? Otherwise we can close it.
Ed,
Yes,
I've been to Ireland many, many times because my stepson lives in Dublin with, you know, I have 2 grandsons over there. They're actually Al's grandsons, but my step grandsons. And I've been there maybe 15 times. And these characters and the jargon and everything, it rings so true to Ireland. And you said something about, you know, happy ending. I said, wouldn't be in an Irish. They're so happy-go-lucky, and underneath are the biggest gossips, I think, in the universe. And all this negative stuff is there underlying, was so Irish.
well, I mean, I think of Eugene O'Neill when I think of, you know, Irish playwrights and, yeah, this is in line with that, you know, certainly.
And so beautiful, so physically beautiful. Jarring, actually, beautiful was.
Right. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you.
Ed, have you seen the women talking? Ed?
No, I haven't seen it yet.
About that.
Okay.